From the Estados Unidos by way of OC, Los Angeles, and the West Coast. Coming to you, repping tarifas, knocking out agendas of the cancel culture and 50 cracks, breaking down doors in Hollywood for La Raza. Unashamed of the creator, because no one is greater.
Before we get to him, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit that like button, and share this testimony. People need to hear it. So who we have today is a very special person. I'm very honored. He founded By His Grace Church in Boyle Heights, correct?
Yes.
Boyle Heights, and let me tell you how I know of Seday. It's Seday Sanchez. He's a very well-known individual in the Hispanic community, especially in the churches. We're going to get to his story, but the way I met Seday is before I even knew him, I would see him on YouTube and see him singing. He's a recording artist, but also he was the pastor of that church in Boyle Heights. When I visited his church, it was for a men's conference, and I walked in there, and this is right near White Fence, right across from the cemetery. It's in the heart of what people would call the Devil's Playground, right by where they filmed a lot of the movies, Blood In, Blood Out, and all these movies. He's right in the heart of that. Like I said, you would call it the devil's place, man. I walked in his church, and here's all these men, gangster looking, Pendletons, everything, with their hands up, worshiping the Lord. It was incredible. And not only that, I was there, and I know firsthand there was gangsters there, former gangsters. There was mobsters, former mobsters. I mean, everything. So this guy has been in that pit, reaching people out of hell. I've seen it firsthand. I know the guy. I know his music. I have his CDs. We'll give you opportunities to get those later. But welcome, Seday, to the show. To me, he's Pastor Seday. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, so it's exciting, man. It's exciting for me to have you on here. It's a blessing. So let's get right to it, man.
Well, it's a trip for me to just be here and just giving my testimony. It's not the first time I've shared my testimony. People have recorded me, but I'm just no good at it. I just say what's in my heart, but sometimes I gotta read because I'm over 60 years old. I know I only look like I'm 50, but I'm really, my next birthday, I'll be 70 years old, and I'm forgetful.
Wow, bro.
So
Don't trip, bro.
down or something, it's just because I got to remember what I wrote.
Hey, don't trip, brother. Don't trip, bro. It's all good, man. I appreciate you, and it's cool because this testimony, long after we're gone, it's still going to be on YouTube saving souls, bro. So
yeah, it's all about.
Let's get to it. Where did you grow up, and what was your road to Boyle Heights, LA?
I was born in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's in my song. He was born in New Mexico in Santa Fe, but grew up in Navarro in East LA. And so when I was 4 years old, my dad moved us from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Boyle Heights, California. And I lived here in Boyle Heights, and some of you people from Boyle Heights would recognize these streets. I lived on Winter Street, and then after that I lived on Fairmont Street, Blanchard. I lived in City Terrace Drive, Folsom Street, Wabash Avenue. I lived in all those areas, and when I was young, about maybe 8 years old, there was a girl that lived in front of us. And she would roller skate for the T-Birds, the T-Bird roller skating. They had roller skating downtown LA. Her name was Lucy Chavarria. And some of you older guys might remember her, but she lived in the front house right in front of us. And so I lived in a time where, people used to play, we used to play cards. With cards, we used to throw them against the wall. We played marbles. We played, there was different seasons. kite season, bike season. There was marble season. And I'm talking about way back, we wait for the rain to come just to float little boats on the curb by the street. My first high was smoking weed. And you might not know him, but there's an evangelist named Rudy Tovar. When I knew him, he was a dope fiend. He was a heroin addict, but we got high together. I went to Belvedere Junior High School, and this was the Cholo generation. This is where you would start your khakis, and we wore counties, we wore Friscos, khakis, starch them down, and put a little cut on the side. I was about 11, 12, but at that time I used to look at the guys and hang out with these guys, and they were all creased down. And since then I look at this, and it's become my style. I still refer back to that. I guess I can't shake it. And so anyway, where I lived at, Paul, coming from Wabash, Winter, Evergreen, there was a lot of neighborhoods around there. There was Hazard, there was White Fence, Garrity, Juarez, Loyo Maravilla, Locos, La Lopez, and I'd hang out with all these guys. These were my friends. When I was in school, they would more than once they would try to recruit me, to be part of that. But I realized that, if I get into this gang, I can't go to that park. And if I go in this gang, I can't go to that liquor store. And I can't go to that party because it's in that barrio. And so I said, you know what? I'm not going to get in any gang. And that way I can go wherever I want to go. And so I never got jumped into a gang. First time I ever went to jail, I was 17 years old. And I went in for sniffing glue. So till that time, I never went to juvenile hall or anything, because not that I outsmarted the cops. It's just that I was always just in the shadows, and just being by myself or with other guys, just always running and hiding. So till I was 17 years old, that's the first time I went to jail, and it was a place called Georgia Street. And not too many people know about it, but it's called Georgia Street, and this place was in downtown LA. This was right after the riots, the Watts riots in 1966. So in 66 and 67, there was a lot of racial tension in the jails and in the streets. After this time, I graduated to sniffing glue, from sniffing glue to drinking beer, taking Reds. I remember Lily F40s, and they would sell these LSD, mescaline. I became a straight out dope fiend, from buying a PCP to selling PCP. I was a thief, a liar, a cheater. I got married the first time. I've been married twice. The first time I got married, I was 18 years old. And I don't consider myself a deadbeat dad. I consider myself a dad that should have been beat to death, because I was no good to my wife. I was no good to my kids. I abandoned my kids. I exchanged them for the drugs that I took. One thing about my kids, excuse me, all my kids have suffered. The ones that suffered when I was living for the devil, they suffered because I wasn't there. My daughter, Lisa, she got pregnant at 14 because I wasn't there. My son, Michael, went to prison because I wasn't there for them. Then I got saved. When I got saved, my other kids suffered. They suffered because I was going to conferences. I was going to meetings. I was running the church. So they kind of had to sacrifice their dad. So all my kids have suffered. And, you know, what you see is what you get, kids. I love you. My kids know the Lord. They're one of them that was out in the streets, Vincent. Vincent was out there for so long, but he came to the Lord. My son's out of prison. My daughter became one of the best moms and one of the best grandmothers. And so, what the devil meant for evil, God turned it around for the good, and He always does. In 1970, excuse me, Paul.
Can I ask you something really quick?
Yes, sir.
I was at a conference, or it was an award show. And do you remember Farrah Fawcett?
Yeah, the blonde,
Yeah, the blonde Farrah
actress.
Fawcett. Well, you know, she had passed away already, and I was talking to Ryan O'Neal. Remember the actor Ryan O'Neal?
Yeah,
And he was telling me that you know, he grew up a lot of times near White Fence area. Okay. And he was telling me that his mom always told him, stay away from that area. How was it? Like, so many movies are made in that area. I mean, how was it growing up right there, bro? Like, was it dangerous, you know, or, you know, for.
well, every neighborhood, every neighborhood was bad. None of them were good. And you couldn't just walk into a house party or into a neighborhood without expecting to get into something. And you always expected, Paul, that whatever house party you went to, something was going to jump off. There was always going to be something happening. So not just White Fence. White Fence was made a name for himself, but all the other barrios. I remember walking down a street in on Gage Avenue, and the guys from Juarez were up on the hill, and one of the guys saw me walking down, and he says, "Hey, there's that Vato Seday. Let's go hit him up. Let's go see what he's all about." While he was getting up to get a few guys to go after me, another homeboy that I knew got in the way, and he said, "Hey, Seday's my home. I know Seday. He's a good dude, and you're gonna have to go through me." And so this takes me back to that being neutral part where he backed me up. But all these neighborhoods, whatever parties they were having, you know, deaths would happen, overdoses would happen, whatever happened. I was part of that neighborhood. I was part of that. One time I was on Wabash Playground. I was hanging out, getting high with the guys from White Fence. As we're getting loaded, about 2 days later, I was in Garrity Loma, getting high up by Woolwine. We were getting loaded up in the hills. And as we're getting loaded, one of the guys says, "Hey, aren't you from White Fence?" I said, "No, I'm not from the fence." And he says, "Yeah, I seen you over there on Wabash." I said, "But I'm not from the fence." And he says, "You're gonna rank out on your barrio?" I said, "I'm not from a barrio." And then one of the guys jumped in and he says, "Hey, if something happens right here while we're in the hill, if something takes off, see, Dave's gonna jump in, you know?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm right here, homie. I'm smoking your dope. I'm right here with you, Uncles. Something comes down, I got your back." So that was just the way it was. Something's gonna happen. But when you're in it, how can I say this? When you're in it, you don't think about it. When you're in the mix, you don't think about the mix. Before I met Christ, I was so far into darkness, I didn't know I was in darkness. I was so much into the mix that you're not even aware of it. You know what I'm talking about? It's hard to explain, but you don't think about the fear. You don't think about the circumstance of the violence. You're not thinking of that because you're part of it without even giving it a second thought. Did I
Incredible.
answer your question?
Incredible.
Do you know, I always had a knife with me. I always had a knife with me, just in case. But I just knew that was part of the deal, part of the plan. Growing up in Boyle Heights,
Yeah, it's
you know, I like to.
incredible. It's incredible, like having been to the church, and like how God used that neutrality later on. You know, we're gonna get there, but how you go into your church and there's people from all kinds of audios there. Like God
Right.
had even prepared the way for that, that you weren't so isolated into one neighborhood that, you know what I mean? It's kind of cool.
Well, you know that that is a tool. That is a tool, a groundbreaking. You know, it's a tool. You can't buy this tool. It's something that you have that God was using in my life. He was using that. He was instilling that in me, so that when I was in Tacoma, and we'll get to that in a little bit. When I was in Tacoma, and I would go right into the streets, the people in the church would say, "Check out the pastor. He just goes right up to these guys. Check out the pastor. He just walking right into the liquor store, surrounded by black guys on the street and everything. I would just go right in there and just, hey, how's it going? What's happening, homie?" And I would just talk to them, just down to earth. And they couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand where I got the boldness. The boldness didn't really come as much from the Lord as it came from the streets. God had instilled that into me. Paul, God has already brought that to me. And so once I did meet the Lord, oh man, there we go. Now I got a double portion. I'm able to go anywhere because I got the freedom of Christ. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But it was something that you couldn't buy. It's something that it's just there. Let me tell you something. When in my job, I'm a security. I work security for the movies,
Right.
and I was working for a SWAT, and we were in an area called Cam, right there in Boyle Heights, an area called Cam. And they usually tax the people that are going to show a production there. They usually tax them. But anyway, besides all that, there was four or five gangsters walking up in the middle of the street, and they're going to shoot a scene around the corner. As they're walking up, I'm talking to a couple of truck drivers. I'm talking to one of the guys, he works with the food services. And as we're talking, one of the guys comes from one of the gangsters walks away, and he comes up to me. He says, "Hey, what's up, G? How's it going, G?" And he shakes my hand. While he's shaking my hand, Paul, the other ones come to where I'm at, and they all kind of surround me, and they're all shaking my hand. And I'm just shaking their hand, and then they walk away. When they walk away, the rest of the guys that are there, from the crew, they said, "What was that all about? Seday, what was that all about?" And I said, "Oh, they're just showing respect." And they said, "What do you mean? What are we? Chopped liver?" And I said, "You're not chopped liver. It's not that they don't respect you, but they don't know you." And he said, "Did you know them?" I said, "No, I don't know them, and I don't have to know them. They're giving me respect because they know by looking at me that I made it. I got a legitimate job, but they know I've been there." If that makes any sense. It
Oh
just
yeah.
something that was just there, and they just tripped out, and I said, "Wow, that's a trip."
That's
And
beautiful.
they took notice of that,
Yeah.
and I
That's
felt good
awesome.
about it.
Yeah. I know I'm seeing you in pictures with movie stars and everything, man. What a trip, bro.
That's
But
where
yeah,
that comes
please
from.
continue the story, man. Please continue your story. We love it.
All right, check this out. I was always in 1970. There was the Vietnam War broke out, 66, 67, 68. They were having walkouts, school walkouts. About 60, I was in Roosevelt in 69, and they would keep us locked up in the schools. But the Brown Beret came, Brown Beret, Viva la Raza, and all that was coming up in Boyle Heights, LA area. And so they would come to the schools, and they would open the gates, or we would break the gates down and come out, and we'd have walkouts all over the streets. So when the Vietnam War was, in its main course taking place, they had a moratorium march, and you probably heard about it in 1970. It was down Whittier Boulevard. It was a moratorium, an anti-Vietnam War moratorium march, right down Whittier Boulevard. And like I said, I slept under bushes. I would check cars if the car door opened. That was my my resting spot for the night. And one day I was asleep under some bushes by a church on Atlantic Boulevard. It was St. Alphonsus Church. I don't know how I got there. As a matter of fact, sometimes my wife would just drop me off, and she would say, "Where can I take you? Where you want to where you gonna stay at? What place? And I said, just drop me off right here by that bush right there. See that bush right there? I'll just climb under there. Well, I was under that bush in 1970 by that church, and all of a sudden I heard a bunch of noise. I heard a bunch of people, heard a bunch of sirens and different things going on. So I got up from the bush and I walked to the street on Atlantic Boulevard. And as I'm looking, there's hundreds and hundreds of people walking in the middle of the street. I said, where are all these people going? Then I started noticing it's all raza, dope fiends, drug addicts, gangsters, and they're walking in the middle of the street. I've never seen this. I was involved in the walkouts, but I never seen that many. I'm talking about, if you Google it, they didn't have Google in those days. You Google it, there's thousands on that street. And as they were going, I was just looking at it. I just woke up. All of a sudden it hit me. Bam. It wasn't the Holy Ghost, it was the holy smoke. And I could smell the marijuana. I could smell the weed. I could smell it in the air. And I said, what the heck is going on? And all of a sudden I said, this is my cue. This is where I joined the party. So I made my way into the crowd, started getting high. They started passing me some weed. All of a sudden this guy's opening some beer and passing, the 6-packs. He's giving me a beer and I'm just going down the street and here I go. Now, what I was tripping out on was that in every street corner, there was about five or six police car units. And the sheriffs were on the street corner, but we're smoking weed and drinking beer and just like blowing it in their face. And there wasn't a thing they could do about it. And I was saying, I've never been in something like that. It was kind of like if I was, in dope fiend heaven, just in the middle of Atlantic Boulevard. And as we're going down the street, I noticed something else that really tripped me out. I started looking at, it was a hot August day, and I started noticing the tattoos, the guys, the plaquiazos on their back, Pacoima. That one jumped out at me. I said, Pacoima? This is Boyle Heights. This is East Los. Pacoima. Then I said, San Fernando. I seen another one, San Diego, Culver City, on the back of his arm, Culver City. I said, what are all these neighborhoods doing right here in Boyle Heights, in East LA? What are all these neighborhoods doing in the middle of the street, walking? Okay, so as I'm looking at all these people walking down the street, we turned on Atlantic. And when we turned on Atlantic, way over there by close to the bridge, you'll see that Whittier Boulevard sign, but there was a bridge right there by Eastern. And as we're turning on Atlantic, I started seeing and hearing like a wave of glass breaking. The glass was shattering. And then that wave started getting closer. Now it's going to Kern Avenue. Then it's hitting McBride. Then it's hitting Federally. It's getting closer and the windows are breaking. All of a sudden smoke's coming out and it's getting closer and closer. And it came right by that bar where they killed Richard Salazar. Was his name Richard Salazar? From Salazar Park. But anyway, he was a news reporter and he was by that bar. But when it got to me on Atlantic, by that time, it was just like a wave of breaking glass, shattering glass, and then fire started. And that's when the riot broke out in East LA. So I just, when in Rome, do like the Romans. So I got me a big old stick and started hitting a window and it broke. But the jewelry that was there, the TVs, they couldn't fit through the bars. So I tried to get a ring, but somebody else got the ring, and we were just going crazy trying to get stuff from the stores and everything. And so after that passed from Atlantic, it just went, and the cops started coming and they were gonna try and stop it, but there were just too many of us. So they allowed it to continue. So we keep marching past the cemetery, Calvary Cemetery, all the way to Laguna Park. At that time, it was called Laguna Park, and that's where we were going to rally at. But soon as we all got there and they had us all in one place, they surrounded the park and just came at us. It was just like a free-for-all. The police, the sheriffs, the people, and it just getting out of there was a thing of itself. And so I made it out. One cop, a billy club, got me on the side of the face, but they weren't letting anybody through unless they were gonna give you one, hit you, or try and stop you. But no, nobody was getting arrested as much as getting beat down. That's what they wanted. They wanted the revenge. And anyway, the reporter got shot and killed at the bar over there on Whittier, and so that's why they renamed that park from Laguna to Salazar Park that day. So anyway, from that riot, when it broke out, a year later, I got drafted for that Vietnam War. And they asked me, when you get drafted, they ask you, where do you want to be placed? Where do you want to go do your time? I call it doing time because I got drafted. I didn't enlist. And so I put in for Vietnam. And in those days, people were trying to avoid the draft and avoid going to war, but I was a dope fiend. I wanted to be where my homies are, and I wanted to be where the drugs are at. So when I put in for it, they took me to see the psychiatrist. He said, this guy's got to be nuts to request Vietnam. So when they asked me, why did you want to go to Vietnam? And I told them, you know what? I heard they have good opium there and they have good weed there, and you could get it. You could walk and just pull it off the bushes, but that was just, Hollywood. But anyway, that's the way I thought it was. And so they said, no, you're not crazy. We're going to keep you in the army. So they sent me to Germany. I ended up doing my time in Germany. And so I stood there in Germany. I said that my wife used to drop me off by the bushes and stuff. That wasn't my first wife. That was Corrine. This is the one I was married to.
Sure.
But, we weren't married yet. Amen. So I stayed on drugs. It was a merry-go-round, in the service, out of the service, going to the streets, going to jail, then streets and jail. And while other guys were in the holding tank, they were saying, man, I hope I get out. Man, I hope I go to the streets. While they're saying that, I'm saying, I hope I go to prison this time. I hope they give me state time. I was tired of Biscaloo. I was tired of the county jail. I was tired of Wayside. I wanted to go if I'm going to do time, send me somewhere, so I could do some good time, And I ended up going back to Wayside again, And, Paul, one time when I was in court, on my way back to jail again, my sisters came. See, my mom died when I was 7 years old. And one of the memories I have of my mom, it was right before Mother's Day. I don't know if you remember those little hands that you put on a round piece of clay.
Yeah.
Handprint. Well, I was making one of those for Mother's Day. And at that time, my mom had breast cancer. And she was in the General Hospital on Marengo Street in Los Angeles. And so she passed right before Mother's Day. When I was 7 years old, she died of breast cancer. So I had that round thing with the hand thing. So, I remember telling my teacher, what do I do with this? Who do I give this to now? Because my mom died. She said, oh, give it to one of your sisters. Give it to your oldest sister. So I remember going and, that's why I gave it to my sister. But I said that to say this. The 4 sisters that I had, they were the ones that raised me. My oldest sisters were married. My other sister was a teenager. My other sister was a teenager. So I kind of grew up doing what I want to do. That's what kind of just pushed me to the streets, because I didn't have a mom to be right there raising me. I didn't have a dad taking care of me because he was working. So when I was there in the courthouse, my 4 sisters, my 4 moms were on the bench behind me, and they started reading off my case: attempted murder, attempted kidnapping, attempted assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault, attempted transportation, grand theft auto, and they're reading off my rap sheet. And my sisters, they got to see me in the holding tank before I went to the county, and they were sitting there and they're looking at me, and through the phone they're saying, "What happened to you? Seday, what? This isn't the way you were raised. What took place that you're facing all these charges? We can't believe. If we weren't here, we wouldn't have believed that this was you." And so, you know, I was an alcoholic, drug addict, and it didn't matter to me. I just said, I don't know. So I remember my sister saying, "I'm glad our mom is dead so that she wouldn't see what became of your life." And I remember when she told me that, you know, I just said, man, she's got a good point. I'm glad my mom isn't here to see what happened to me. So anyway, one day, you know, one day I came out, you know, and went right back to it. You know how we do it. We even tell the judge, never again. Judge, give me another chance. But we go back. I was stuck on stupid. I could not let it go. I even told the judge one time, he says, "What? You keep coming before me, and it's always the same charge, the same charge. What's wrong with you? You and PCP, what is it?" And I said, "Could I be honest?" And he said, "Sure. I would like to hear your reasoning." I said, "I just love angel dust." I just, you know, that was the fact. I love angel dust. And the whole courtroom started just cracking up.
Oh man.
I remember one time, Paul, I went to a outpatient mental health clinic, outpatient from the courts. We're sitting in a circle, and everybody's talking about why they're going to see the psychiatrist. And I told them, "Well, I'm court committed. You know, I don't have to be here." I said, "I don't have to be here. I'm here because the court sent me." That was my reasoning. But they started sharing why they were there. So I said, "Well, I'm here because I'm addicted to angel dust, to PCP." So they started asking, "Isn't that an elephant tranquilizer? Isn't that the drug they used to tranquilize the elephants and stuff?" And I go, "Yeah, that's what I hear." He said, "Oh man, I'll bet you're happy. I'll bet you're glad that you're sober now and you don't have nothing to do with that. I'm glad. I bet you're so glad to overcome that part of your life." So I looked at the counselor or the doctor, whatever he was, and I said, "Is this, you know, nobody's going to hear about this? Is this, you know, going to stay here within these walls?" And he says, "Yeah, this, you know, what stays, you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." So he said, "No, nobody else will know." And I said, "Well," and I reached in my sock and I pulled out a joint, a pinner. I said, when I leave here, before I catch
Oh
that
man.
free bus, before I catch a free bus over there and go back to my sisters in Val Gardens, I'm going to smoke this one as soon as I walk out of this. That's how messed up I was. That's how lost I was. And I stayed on that merry-go-round for such a long time. One day, this is how I met my wife, Corinne. One day I went to a dance and I saw her walking through the door. You know how they say that you're on cloud nine, you know, and the butterflies start flying and the birds start making songs and all this? Man, when I seen her, I just said, "Baby doll, where have you been all my life?" And I just seen her, and man, you know, it was love at first sight. I just fell in love, you know. I don't know if you know that feeling, Paul,
Oh yeah.
but man, you know, I just felt that, and you know, I was happened to be taking the invites for the dance. I said, "Baby doll, you don't need an invite, just come on in," you know. And so she came in, and you know, I said, "This is what I needed. I needed someone that's gonna take my mind off drugs, take my eyes off drugs, and you know, she's gonna help me get straight. I'm gonna be able to hold down a job. This is what I needed. My kids couldn't help me. You know, the army didn't help. Nothing worked. You know, the rehab, the psychiatrist didn't work. You know, this is what I need." So I thought, but I kept on the drugs, Paul was stronger than that. You know, she loved me with all of her love that she had, all the strength, but I still love drugs even more than my wife Corinne, more than anything, you know. I lived in the streets, you know, going from one bush to another, from one car, you know. I was, you know, I used to steal cars just to take them. In those days, you had a key that fit a Chevy, fit a Dodge, fit a Chrysler, a Buick, the same type of key, General Motors key. I had a ring of keys on a hanger. I had around 80 keys on there. So it didn't matter where I went. I had that key ring with me, and that would get me a car. I would I sell cars, you know. Can I be honest? One time I stole a car over there in City of Commerce. You know, the guy just got off to mail a letter. He got off his car just to mail a letter. And I seen the smoke coming out. It was early in the morning, and I don't know where I was coming from. But I seen the smoke. I said, if I can get there before he finishes mailing that letter, I got me a car for the day. And I just jumped in the car and took off.
Oh man.
Went to the I went to the neighborhood, right? And I got what I wanted. I got in those days they were 8-track tapes. 8-track tapes. I don't even know you heard of those.
Yeah.
What I wanted, I tell the neighborhood, hey, you know what? If you want a car, there's a car park right there on Blades Avenue. You could get it. So then, after the car was there for a day, a week, 2 weeks, I seen that they're starting to take the tires. They took the steering wheel. They're taking more and more of the car. I said, man, they still haven't taken this car out of the neighborhood. All of a sudden, it happened to be Ash Wednesday, Paul. It was an Ash Wednesday, and I'm staggering down the street. I don't know what I was high on, but I noticed the crosses. People walking down the street have a little cross on their forehead. For some reason, see, I've been a Catholic. I made my first Holy Communion. I made my confirmation. I've gotten thousands of crosses on my forehead in my time, you know. And I'm looking at all these crosses. I start thinking about God. I said, man. And it just so happened that I was right where that car was in the neighborhood when I was seeing these people with the crosses. I said, man, I should call. I had the phone number because me and my niece Evelyn were going to pull a Dolphin move and try and get money for that car. So I had the number. So I called up the people that owned the car. When I called up, this little old lady answers, the grandmother. Ay, mijo, qué bueno. She was so happy. Ay, you're so good. God is so good that you would make this call. Oh, thank you, Jesus. You're an angel. You must be sent from heaven. She's thinking that I'm the one. She doesn't know that I'm the one that took the car. She's just thinking of somebody that's seen the car, and I'm just making this phone call.
Right.
I say, yeah, I see your car parked. And I say, oh, may God bless you. You are favored in God's sight. And oh man, I'm feeling worse. Every word she's saying is killing me. And I said, just come get the car. It's right here. And you know, oh, may God bless you, and this and that. You know, another thing. Speaking of cars, every time I took a car, and you know, I think I stopped counting at 50, 50. I would count how many cars I would take, you know. So I think I stopped around 50, but there was still more after that. But the cars that I took, they always had a Bible in them. They had a Bible. I would find a Bible in the car. And, you know, I remember coming home to my sister's house, and I would always leave the Bibles on the coffee table every time so my nieces would come home. They say, oh, see, they must have stolen another car because there's another Bible on the coffee table. I was taking cars from Christians, not even knowing it.
Wow.
One time, me and Corinne, you know, she was going to ditch from school, and as you know, I was going to meet her behind the Beehive right there on Whittier Boulevard, and we are going to go up to Crystal Lake in Azusa, and she had her car, but on the way to the Beehive, there was a guy that had the car running. He was started it, and it was warming up. So I jumped. I said, why not? I'll just take that car. So I jumped in that car, and I met her at the Beehive, and we went to Crystal Lake. when we're at Crystal Lake, I started taking things out of the glove compartment. I started opening the trunk. You want this? You want this? And I'm giving her stuff. She says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm checking out to see what's good and what's not. And she says, you mean this isn't your car? I said, oh, no, this ain't my car. She said, where'd you get this car? She said, she asked me, whose car is it? And I said, I don't know. I just got it on the way to the beehive, to the bar, you know, where you're meeting me at. And she said, I'm in a stolen car? And I go, yeah. And she said, I'm not going with you in a stolen car. I'm not going to get caught. And I kind of just told her, what's a long ways down the hill, you know, from Crystal Lake. I said, you know, what choice do you have? So here we go. She was nervous and she just wanted out of that car, but where can she go? We drove all the way home and all the way down the hill. And that was just me, you know. I didn't care. I didn't care. Things didn't matter to me. But anyway, let me see where I'm at, you know. So I lived in the streets, and the cars that I checked, you know, if they were unlocked, that was my car for the day. And even, I got so bad that even Corrine cut me loose. Even Corrine, she said, you know, you don't care about nothing. You care about me. You don't care about nothing. So that was it. And the way I lived, Paul, I kind of counted like a death in slow motion. I was killing myself, but it was in slow motion, like doing time, doing a life sentence, one year at a time. You know what I mean? So I was always just into my drugs. One day I was in Wayside. Let me take a drink real quick.
Sure.
One day I'm sitting in Wayside in Lower Compound. You been there, Paul?
No, OC,
Okay.
only OC.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hang around. Those were the good guys over there, you know.
That's right.
Those were the good part of town.
Right on.
Anyway, I'm right there sitting in Wayside. You know, God, he told Peter, I'm going to make you a fisher of men. But for God to fish for men, he needs to have the right bait. So he had the right bait for Seday. You know, he was, when I'm looking in the compound, there was some girls pushing amplifiers to the chapel. And they're pushing these amplifiers. And I'm right there. And all the guys are right there just checking it out. And all of a sudden I said, I'm going to church tonight. I don't know about you guys, you know, I'm not going to wait pile. I'm gonna be in church after dinner. I'm gonna go to chapel. So he said, what are you gonna go in there for? And I said, didn't you see those chicks walking up there? And I said, all right. So I'm in the chapel. I went there for another reason. I didn't go to hear the word. I didn't go to hear the music, but I just went for the lust of the eyes. And so when I'm in there, all of a sudden, this guy starts speaking, start talking about God. I'm talking about how the Lord can change your life, how old things pass away. Behold, all things become new. And he starts telling this story about how God loves the vato loco, how God loves the dope fiend and the gangster, and God this and God that, and Jesus can do this. This guy had more tattoos than I had. This guy had been to prison. He'd been to Folsom. He'd been to Soledad. He had done time. He had tattoos on his neck. In those days, vatos didn't have tattoos on their neck, you know, and he was all tacked down. So as I'm listening and looking at this dude, I'm getting a Holy Ghost anger inside of me. I'm getting upset. Forget about what I went there for. All of a sudden, I got an agenda. I gotta tell this vato, hey, you know what? Don't be doing that. Don't be coming disrespecting God and talking about God, because you're just like me. That's, you know, it hit me like a ton of bricks. He has no right to be talking about God. So now I'm waiting, and you know, I'm steaming, I'm burning up, because he kept on talking about God, opening his Bible and talking about God. So finally, when it was over and everybody's leaving the chapel, I waited, and I was just gonna cold cut him. That's how mad I was. Just sucker punch him. I was gonna just get him. I was so mad. So when everybody left, I went up to him. Oh, one reason I didn't, because he had glasses on. You know, you're not supposed to hit a guy with glasses.
Yeah.
So when I walked up to him, you know, He puts out his hand. Hey, homie, he puts out his hand. I said, I want to shake your hand. I said, check this out. I'm not the most religious guy in the world, but you have no business talking about God. How dare you disrespect a priest? Only a priest can talk about God. You're just like me. I said, you're just as bad as me. You're just as messed up. Look at all them tattoos. You've been to Folsom. I haven't even been there yet. And look at you. And you're gonna come and tell me about God? And he told me something that I'll never forget. He says, God loves the vato loco. God loves the doping. God died on a cross for you, I said, and for me. And I said, but you're not supposed to be talking about God. Only a priest can talk about God. And he says, but you won't listen to a priest, but you might listen to me. Bam! He was hitting me left and right, and he was just telling the straight out gospel, planting a seed that I couldn't shake. And I said, son, this guy, I don't want to hear it. And I just walked out, just left him right there. He said, God loves you, I said. God loves you, I said. And I didn't cuss. I just walked out because, we're still in church. So I walked out. I didn't give it another thought, but I started thinking about what he said. He planted a seed, When I came out of jail, I would go visit churches. I would hear people singing outside of churches, and I would go in there. You know what I would do, Paul? I would tell the vatos in the neighborhood, look, I got the bag. If anybody wants to buy some Boyle, I'll be in the church. Here's where it's located. You know where that church is, what I live. So just go call me out and I'll sell you. I got the dime bags. I would go to church. The ushers would tap me on the shoulder. I'd go outside to the street, sell my dime bags, and then come back in. And so that, God wouldn't be left out, I put that feria in the basket when the basket came by. That's my perverted relationship that I had, And so I was doing that. But as I'm sitting in those churches, sitting at that church, more of the seed was being planted. I would go staggering. I was smacked back on heroin one time in there, and I was in the church and I was hearing they're showing them. It was a movie night. They're showing Thief in the Night or Years of the Beast, one of those movies. And I was looking at, but I knocked out. When I knocked out, my homeboy, one of the guys that was in the church, but we got to know each other. He tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Seday, you gotta leave. It's time to leave. You can't, wake up." I said, "Hijo," and I got up and I left. But that's the way I would go. And let me just say this, God is no respecter of persons, and He loves you the way you are. You're looking at this. God loves you the way you are. You just go. You just go the way you are. Don't say, well, when I clean myself up, when I get ready, when I have a good job, when I get my life back. No, you'll never get in order. God loves you the way you are. Just come as you are. So anyway, eventually I got so messed up. I was going to church, got back into PCP, got back into heroin. One day, after I met his name was Porky, the guy with the glasses. The guy told me about the Lord. When he planted that seed, and I started going to the churches. One day I was in a neighborhood, ready to go back to jail, ready to go. I was already had warrants. I was already on my way back. While everybody was going home, I asked my homeboy Bobby. I said, "Bobby, can I stay in your backyard? I don't want to go look for a car with the door open. Can I just stay in your backyard?" He says, "Go ahead, but lady just had puppies. Make sure she doesn't bite you." That was his dog's name, Lady. So I went to the back and I just got in there with Lady, and I got the little puppies. And I got the puppies and I held them up to just to keep me warm, right? And I'm holding the little puppies, about 2 or 3 of them, and I'm holding them. And I was just going to lay down and go to sleep. And for some reason, I remembered a scripture where the Lord said, "I'll never leave you or forsake you." I had already heard, I'd already been visiting the church. He said, "I'll never leave you or forsake you." And I had even made an altar call, but it wasn't, for real. I just went because people were going up there, and I said my little prayer. But I never accepted, I never said a sinner's prayer. I remember that. So when I'm holding the little puppies, I put them down, I got on my knees, and it was a full moon, full moon. And I looked up at the moon and I just said, Lord, you said that you'll never leave me or forsake me. And I know I've been in your presence. I know that, I've been in your churches and you never shut the doors on me. So, you know what, Lord, if you are real, put me back in jail or put me in a hospital. But look where I'm at. I'm sleeping with these little dogs in the back of my homeboy's house. Do something in my life. I'll accept you into my heart right now if you do that. Serio. The next day, my homeboy Alex passes by. And he's passing by and he says, "Hey, Seday, what are you doing?" I said, "No, I just got up right now." He said, you're still staying in the cars?" He knew I was, just open doors. I said, "Yeah." He says, "I got a place in Norwalk. I got an apartment in Norwalk if you want to come stay with me." I said, "Norwalk?" The only thing I knew about Norwalk, we used to get our Stingrays. When I was young, we used to get our old Stingrays, and just make them so they could travel to Norwalk and ride our bikes all the way to Norwalk and get brand new ones right after Christmas. All them white boys used to get little brand new Stingrays, and we'd come back to Boyle Heights with brand new Sting. I'm talking about sissy bars and spring action and the shifters. We had it going on, Paul. But anyway, I went to Norwalk. I stood in his house, in his apartment. That night, I called up my niece because she had taken me to a church too. I called up my niece and I said, "Yvonne, remember you took me to a church one time? Can you take me back to that church?" The pastor's name was Ruben Reyna in a Victory Chapel. And she said, "You know what, Seday, we're not there no more. We moved." I said, "Oh man, I was thinking of going to church." Now you remember, 2 days before I had just prayed that prayer. Lord, give me a chance. So when I called her, she said, "We're not over there no more." I said, "Where are you at?" And she said, "We're in Norwalk." I said, "Norwalk?" I said, "You know what, Ivana? I just moved to Norwalk." And she said, "Oh, we're on Pioneer Boulevard, Firestone." Oh no, she said, "We're on Firestone." I said, "I'm living on Firestone and Pioneer." And she said, "We're a block down. We're about 1 or 2 blocks down on Orange Day." And I said, "Wait a minute. No way." And she goes, "Yeah." She said, "You could probably walk it to our church from where you're at." I said, "All right." Sunday morning, I'm walking to the church. There's a tent. There's a tent with light bulbs in it. Victory Chapel. It was the beginning stages. I just moved from a house and got that little property. I walked in there. I see people with their hands raised up. And I got a flashback from the moratorium where the vatos had those tattoos from different barrios. I was seeing the same thing in the church, but not different barrios, different tattoos. I was saying, wait a minute. And then I started thinking about that vato Porky, that he had tattoos. I said, is this really happening? Are people really, does God really love the vato loco? And all of a sudden I went in there and I started hearing the word, and I just put my head down. I just said, man, they made the invitation. You know how they do it. Made the invitation. You're out there, you're messed up, and you've tried everything else. And all of a sudden I had my head down. This big giant teddy bear of a guy, his name was Albert Valdivia. He was a director of a Cholo play. He taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Are you tired yet?" Oh man, it seemed like he could see right through me. He told me those words, "Are you tired yet? Like, have you had enough?" I just said, "Yeah, I'm tired." He says, "If you want, I'll pray with you." I said, "Okay." And I got up. He led me to the Lord right there. That was in 1980. I gave my life to God, and I lived that life, since 1980. Right there's where I accepted the Lord. Pretty soon after I accepted the Lord, I'm living for God, right? So I accepted the Lord right there. A week or That was a Sunday. Monday, I told a guy, my homeboy Alex, I said, "Where's the unemployment office?" And he says, "You know what? It's just about half a block down." I said, "Half a block?" I said, "The church was only a block, and you're telling me the unemployment's half a block?" Yep. I went to unemployment. I'm filling out unemployment papers. As I'm filling them out, somebody walks in. "Does anybody want a job for today? They'll pay you today. You work for today." I said, "I'm not doing nothing. I'll go." That that job was about 3 blocks away. So I go down there and I start working. As I'm working, the guy comes up to me and he says, "Have you done this work before?" I said, "No, it's an Orange County Container, a box company." I said, "No, I never done this." He said, "You're pretty good at it. Would you like to make an application?" I said, "Yeah, I made the application." I was there 3 years,
Wow.
3 years in that same company, Paul. In
God's
within
amazing.
in less than 3 days, God took me out of the lottery. He put me in that church, and he gave me a job within 3 days. God did it. All I did was just said, "Hey, if you're real, you'll never leave and forsake. If you're real, give me a chance." And he did it. Amen.
Amen.
Check this out. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Before I do, Seday, we're not done with your story. I think this is a good time. We're not done with your story. There's a lot more to go. People are hearing your story. Before we go on, people are watching. Maybe the Holy Spirit's tugging on their heart, man. You want to say a prayer? If they want to receive Christ like right now, you want to lead them in a prayer to receive the Lord as they're watching before we continue?
Sure, we can do that. We can do that. Let's pray. If you're watching this story, this is a true story. I lived this story, and I'm explaining it to you how God moved in my life. I got on my knees, and within 3 days from that simple request, it wasn't even a prayer. I was just challenging God. I was putting God at his word. I said, "If you are real, your word says you'll never leave me or forsake me." I took you at your word. And within 3 days, you gave me a job. You gave me a church. You gave me back things. You were starting to move in my life. So if you're out there today and you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, I'm just challenging you. You tried everything else. Give Jesus a chance in your life. Give him a chance. I'm going to go on with my story. There's a few more things I have to say, but I want to tell you, God loves you. And if you heard me this far, stick with us. There's more to come. God loves you. God bless you. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I think
Okay.
it's important to, when the Holy Spirit's moving, to give him a chance.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. Please go on.
That guy that led me to the Lord as I stood in that church, that was in 1980. In 82, Corrine was in Washington, and she heard, we got in contact again because I told you, she had cut me loose. She dropped me like a bad habit, but I don't blame her. But we got in touch again, and she says, "I'm going to come visit. I'm going to come back to LA and visit." She was living in Washington State. When she came, uh, she couldn't believe the change. She couldn't believe that I was walking with the Lord. And, she said, "You know what? This can't be you. It's such a change." But in 82, we got married after she started coming. She was a little rebel herself. She was still smoking. She was still into the world. But, I'm one of those few cases where the guy gets saved before his wife. But I was saved and she came to the Lord. We've been with the Lord ever since. But during this time, I met that I got together with Albert Valdivia, and he was in charge of a play, Ese Cholo. I guess I played every scene in that part in that play. I played the gangster, the Vato Loco. I played the guy that shoots, and eventually I became the leader of that play. Eventually I became the director of this play. I was the overseer of this same play. God was already using me and moving in my life and lifting me up. Eventually I met Chaplain Bob. And Chaplain Bob he invited me to go to the prisons with him. Went to
Mikado?
Tehachapi.
Is that Mikado?
Bob Mercado, Chaplain Bob Mercado, he was going to the same church with me. And we started going to, this was Calvary Chapel. So we went to Tehachapi, Chino, Biscaloo Center. We would go to my old haunts, Old County Jail, New County Jail. And we were at HOJJ. I had my own Bible study going on at that time. And one time we were having what did I say? Oh, it was Victory Chapel, not Calvary Chapel. I'm sorry. Okay. That's why we changed the name to New Harvest, because they were mixing us with Victory Outreach and Calvary Chapel. So we came up with New Harvest. Okay. So anyway, I was with Bobby, but one time he was having a meeting, a prison ministry meeting. And when we were at that meeting, this vato walked in. And I looked at him and I said, man, where do I know this guy from? And he took a few steps and looked at me and turned away, but then he turned back and he looked at me. And we're looking at each other. Finally, I said, where do I know you from? I said, and he goes, hey, homie, you look familiar. I said, my name's Seday. Did I ever meet you? And he goes, no, that name don't seem familiar, but I met you somewhere. And I said, I don't know where. And then he goes, oh, I remember. I go, where? He said, we were at Wayside together. I was preaching. And I said, oh, and then I remembered the whole thing. I said, oh, man. The first thing I said was Despensa. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you. And he said, oh, yeah. I went home and I told my mom about you. I go, really? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, I told my mom that, see, because his mom would always tell him, Porky, one of these days, one of those guys is going to come at you. One of these days, they don't want to hear it, because his mom was a Católico. She was Catholic. And she was saying, Porky, one of these days, one of those guys is going to get mad at what you tell them, and they're going to come at you. So he said, you know what, homie, when I went home that day, I told my mom, and she was saying, I told you. But you know what? Before I forget, let me tell you what happened. One day I'm singing at a conference, at Chaplain Bob's prison conference, and I'm telling the same story to the audience, that Porky was there, and then I seen him because the prison ministry conference, I'm telling you how we met. I'm talking about Porky. And we took a break. After I sang my song, we took a break. This little old lady comes walking up to me. And she says, Pastor, I was hearing your story about you over there in Wayside, and that guy, you were going to hit this guy. And I go, oh, yeah. It's something, it just got me mad. But that man planted a seed. And she said, and you said his name was Porky. I said, yeah. She said, I was his mom that tried to stop him from going in there.
Wow.
And he told me that story about you. And now you're here on the stage ministering to us and singing to us, and I can't believe that it made a whole circle, and I was trying to stop him from, you're his fruit. I said, yes, I'm his fruit.
That is incredible. That is incredible. A lot of us who have become Christians, we have that Porky in our life. This name, man. Thank God for Porky in your life. Did you ever find out what neighborhood he was from?
He was from Pico Rivera. He was Bobby's homie.
Wow, incredible, man. Yeah, okay.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's, after going to church and being a part of the Ese Cholo play, we were going everywhere with that play. We were going to, one time they even had an event at Lincoln Park in Boyle Heights. And that event is a Cinco de Mayo event. Malo, Tierra, El Chicano, they're all playing there at this event. And I'm the director of the Ese Cholo play. This was about 1987. And so I tell my pastor, Pastor Ruben, I said, hey, Pastor, they're having an event over here at the park. And I was wondering if I could miss the second service and come to the park and take the play there. The black people will be there. And he says, you know what? And I was thinking he'll say, no, you got to be here for the second service. He said, no, go for it. So I went over there and the park was packed out. So many people, packed out, nowhere to park or nothing. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this big open lot. Now it's the DMV, but it was a big open lot for parking, right?
Yeah, right
And
across the street.
across the street, yeah, that DMV place. And it's empty. All of a sudden I have a caravan of people, the people we had 30 people in the play at that time. So we're all caravanning, and I just stopped in the middle street. I said, you know what? We're supposed to be doing something in that park. You can call it a little white lie, I don't know, but I just said, we're supposed to be part of that, what's going on in the park right there. He said, oh, are you with the Cinco de Mayo event? I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay. He moved up barricades out the way and started pulling us in. I said, there's about 10 cars in. He pulled us all into that parking lot. We started getting the pipes out. He says, are you going to need some help? I said, yeah, we can use some help. He got on the walkie-talkie. They started blocking the streets on both sides.
That's
And they crossed us. This is a Budweiser event, Miller event, and we're crossing the street with all of our pipes and everything. We start setting up the whole event. We start putting a play, and I said, okay, now go through the park and start inviting everybody to the play. Tell them on the other side of the park right here, we're gonna have a play. It's gonna start in about half hour. So they made the rounds. I'm talking about dope fiends, gangsters, drug addicts. It's a Budweiser, Cinco de Mayo, Malo, Tierra, and all the people started coming. We had about 200 people right there. We set up the place, started it off, and just started ese cholo with the cohetes going off. Man, the people were tripping out because they never seen these kind of plays, with portraying the Vato Loco and stuff. So we started doing the play, and people started coming, made an altar call. There was at least 60 people on their knees right there receiving the Lord Jesus Christ at a Budweiser event. God is good. God is a blesser. That's just one thing that happened.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that is I remember those concerts back in the day. I wasn't a Christian yet, but I didn't go, but I remember my homeboys going. I remember they had War one particular year.
Right.
That place used to happen, man. So that's pretty awesome, bro.
Yeah. And well, in 1989, my pastor from New Harvest, he sent me and my wife to Tacoma. Her dad was dying. He's like in his last years. So I said, let's go over there. We'll go spend some time with him before he passes, so our kids could meet him, her dad. So we went and we approached my pastor, and the night before I was telling my wife, I said, wouldn't it be funny if we tell him that we're going to Washington, if he would tell us to start a church over there? And we laughed, and sure enough, the next day we approached him. Pastor, we're going to have to go. It's Pastor Richard Salazar. We're going to have to go to Tacoma to spend some time with my wife's family. He says, Tacoma? He says, wait a minute. He started looking at his map. He says, that's only a half hour from Seattle. Well, I don't know where Seattle's at, but I guess it's only. He says, we've been wanting. He calls his wife. She comes in. How long have I been wanting to put a church in Seattle, Washington? She said, oh, you have dreams about that. And he says, Seday, I'm going to send you out there to start working. No way. And we started telling him the story that we were laughing about and everything. So we ended up in Tacoma, Washington. It was a better place because it was, light shines brightest in dark places. There was, gangsters there, dope fiends, drug addicts, and we went over there. When I started going over there, we set up. They've never seen a drug addict on a street corner with a bullhorn. They've never seen a converted dope fiend. There's been alcoholics and different things, but never a street gang dope fiend. And so they see me preaching on the street corner, and all of a sudden I was approached. They made a little story about me in the newspaper. It came out in the newspaper, and all of a sudden the jail chaplain comes to our church, and he starts hearing me preach, and he says, you know what, could you visit our jail system? There's a lot of Mexicans right there, but there's no, they didn't have Mexican gangs as much as blacks and uh, Indian and Korean gangs, but no Mexican gangs. He says, but you know what? There's a lot of Mexicans in the jail systems. And I said, okay. So I went. I held a Sunday service for them to come to the service. Before I knew it, I was the chaplain of the King County uh, jail system. And now I have the badge and the keys, and I would walk and the people would be in line to see their relatives, and I would walk right by them, right to the door with my key and open it up. And they were like, what? Look at this guy. He's, he's a drug addict. They could just tell, where I was coming from. And I'm walking down the hallways, and I'm walking in the hallways on the freeway in the jail. And the guys are looking, hey, what's this all about? Who are you? You're not a cop. You're not a sheriff. What are you doing walking around like this? I said, I'm a chaplain. I hold services in that room over there. Come on out. But I'm talking to them in their language. Hey, homie, what's up? Come over here Sunday. Come on, check it out. It says, feed me. And they started coming. Before I knew it, I had like 50, 60 guys. They're telling the girls about it are coming. And now I have guys and girls together, co-ed, and I'm preaching. I mean, I had about 80 people in one room in a big old giant day room. I'm the chaplain there. I mean, God was just opening doors. God was just opening doors. And so they made me the chaplain. At that time's when my pastor was going to go to visit us in Washington. And I said, man, I'd like to do something extra. I'd like to do something different. He's seen it all. He's heard it all. But he's going to come. What could we do? And then, so anyway, when I was there and we were having the services, and people started coming to the service in the streets, they were just tripping out on what was going on in the jailhouse, and I was being used right there. So they made me the chaplain. In the streets, when we were in the streets, there was God's favor started moving. And I remember I told this guy, get the bullhorn and start street preaching. As he's preaching, a big giant Indian guy, a Native American, starts walking down like a King Kong or something. He's kind of, shut up, stop it. We don't want to hear that noise. We don't want to hear it. Get out of our neighborhood. He's coming. So I tell this guy, keep preaching, keep preaching. And I stood in front of him, and I thought I was going to have to hold back this Goliath. And all of a sudden, the door from the liquor store opens, and this guy comes running out, and he recognized us, and he ran to where we were at. And now he's holding back this giant. This little guy's holding him back, but he was with him. And he starts holding him back and saying, no, you know what? I know these mountains. I know these guys. They're from a church and this and that. And all of a sudden, the guy said, well, they better leave. No, they don't have to leave it. He had been in our church when we first got there, but he had backslid. But God had him right there. God raised up a standard just to protect us. He had that guy right there on that day. Oh, man. There's so many things I could say about that. But anyway, to get back to where my pastor was going to come visit us, my wife said, we should do something different. So I said, you know what? I think I'm going to sing a song. What? You can't sing? Yeah, but it'll be something different. So I heard this song, Tequila, the song Tequila. It had music. In those days, there wasn't karaoke or nothing, but this is one song that didn't have no words. And I started thinking about it. I said, I'm going to put some words to that song, Tequila. So that's the first song I ever made. I don't have to drink Budweiser. I don't have to drink no wine. So I put the words started flowing. I mean, they just came. So when I did that and I sang the song, he said, man, that's good. I don't know how you got those words. That's excellent. Ministry, excellent. He started giving me kudos about that. So I said, man, if it worked for one song, maybe it'll work for another one. So I tried other songs. And Paul, the thing is that I didn't have to work at it. They just came. The words just came. And I said, this has to be a gift. As far as the singing goes, the talent in the voice, that might not be there. But the words, the lyrics, they just flowed. And I didn't know where they came from. But now I know that that was a gift that God gave me. And if you hear my music, you'll see that, a lot of that, they're good words that God just gives me. Amen.
Yep.
So in 2000, I stood there in Tacoma from 89 to the year 2000. Then I was called back, and I was called back to City Terrace. One day before I was called back to City Terrace, I was going to hand over the keys. As pastors, you go through stuff, and people leave, people come, people go. The going gets rough, and sometimes you feel like, man, I'm just gonna throw in the towel. I can't take it no more. So as we're catching a plane, me and my wife were coming to conference, and we've talked it over. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna give back the church. I don't think I can go. I can take another step. I just want to give it up. I'm tired of this. God's not bringing in more people, and it seems monotonous, and I'm just going to handle it. This was in 1999, around there, and I was going to give it, 97. So when I came, that was our mentality, to give back to church. And as soon as we got into the hotel for the conference, this couple comes running up to us. Man, Pastor, we saw a video of you guys preaching in the streets with the canopy above you in the pouring rain with the bullhorn in the street. It encouraged our church so much that you would be out there on a street corner. And that was something we're doing just regular, because it always rains in Tacoma. I said, really? And yeah, our whole church got so stirred up that now we're eating the streets in the rain. We're going the rain or shine, we're here because of you and your church. Oh man. I looked at my wife and I said, we can't give it up now. So we went back and just stuck it out. God was just showing us how much we were needed. So anyway, we came back in 2000. We came in. I took over a church in City Terrace, behind the hazard projects, and the people from the projects started coming from the hazard projects, Ramona Gardens. Big homies were walking to the church. Big homies. These guys are coming out of Quilmas. They're coming out. They've done tiempo. They're connected. They're connected, and they're coming into the church, and we're just talking, and we're doing skits. We're getting bands together. We're giving out food. We had the kids coming from the projects. We had called Lost and Found, a ministry called Lost and Found, giving them hamburgers, giving them food. God was just moving, exploding in this ministry. One day I took the play. I said, I contacted the people from the play. It was still going on, and we went to the projects, and nobody was around. None of the, they gave us a lot of respect. They gave us respect because of our church and because we weren't afraid to go into the areas, gang areas. So when we would go, they would just open doors and just say, leave them alone. Pastor Seday, he's cool and this and that. And some of them were coming to the church. So when we brought the play, we put it in the parking lot, but nobody was coming out. Nobody was showing up. And we were going up and down, passing out flyers, nobody was showing up. All of a sudden, a helicopter seen the crowd that we were of us in the parking lot, and the helicopter started circling and putting his light on the parking lot where we're setting up and everything. And he went around maybe around 20 times. By going around, he got the people in the project so curious that they came out of their houses to see what was going on in the parking lot. And God was putting us on the platform. He was making a way, and we started the play. Even when the helicopter left, the play went on. Another 20, 30 salvations, all right there. It wouldn't have happened if the helicopter wouldn't have showed up. I mean, I'm just talking about what God does.
Yes.
There was a time that I was working for this lady, getting to the war wagon. And she had a trailer right there. I was doing some construction work, building her a stair ramp for a wheelchair. And she had a trailer in her parking lot. And she says, she was so much she was going to give me for the job. I said, what are you going to do with that trailer? And she says, oh, it's just been there, I'll trade you. I said, trade me for what? For the work that you do. And I said, that's a deal. I got that trailer, pulled it home, About a week later, had a homeboy come by, does welding. We chopped it down, took it apart, made a platform out of it. I called up some churches, about 5 churches. I said, you know, we're going to meet right here at City Terrace. Bring your band. We're going to load it up on this. We're going to tie some speakers on this trailer, and we're going to pull it through the streets in Boyle Heights. So we did that, and we're going all through the streets. We're going to hazard projects. We're going to CAM territory. We're going up and down Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I call it Brooklyn. It's Cesar Chavez.
Right.
We're Soto Street. We're hitting all the guys. We're hitting all the neighborhoods, and people are tripping out. You know, they're just tripping out because we're doing it. You know what I mean? When our church was in Boyle Heights, I called about 5 churches, and they came out. So then Christmas came around, and I said, you know what? I'm going to pull out that war wagon again. So we started hitting food banks. We started hitting Toys R Us, the Marine Toys R Us, and we started getting donations. We got food. We got clothes. We started getting jackets. We put on the war wagon. I started calling up some guys from that had lowriders. We started making a caravan. Here we go, back in the streets of Boyle Heights with the war wagon, just, you know, feeding the people, just making a time of it. You know what I mean? Around 2017, I started feeling like God was challenging me to do more than what I was doing, even though I was already had accomplished, if you want to call them accomplishments. I've already been there, done that. But God started challenging me to go further and do more. And I said, but how can I do that? How can I do more if I'm committed right here to the church? And then I heard a message at a men's conference. Pastor Ruben Gutierrez was preaching from Praise Chapel. And he started the message. I was already going through it in my mind, in my heart. I use the word loosely, bothered. I was bothered by the challenge of letting go my church. It didn't seem right. And as soon as he came out and started speaking at that men's discipleship, he said, a pastor doesn't quit a pastor doesn't stop when he's tired. A pastor stops when he's done. Now, I want to repeat that. A pastor doesn't stop when he's tired. A pastor stops when he's done. And that hit me. The Lord said, you're done. As a pastor, you're done. I know you're not tired. I know you can keep going today. But as far as pastoring, you're done. Now you got to go to something else. And that ministered to me. I called my pastor, Pastor Ruben. I said, can I get a meeting with you? We started talking. And I said, what do you think about this? I'm feeling that I got to give up my church. Should I do something? He says, that's a lot to give up. Other pastors have told me, Seday, are you crazy? You worked a lot to get this where it's at. I said, yeah, but I really feel that I got to let it go now. I got to do something else. So my pastor said, why don't you just evangelize what God is telling you? Now you have this music ministry and you're already seasoned. Why not help other churches? Why not go into something else? I said, well, you know, I took it to prayer, took it to my pastor. So instead of handing over the baton, I handed over a sword. I had a sword. My office had all kind of swords, if you remember.
Yeah.
And me and Pastor Victor Alvera, I said, Pastor, you know what? I'm going to hand this sword over to you, and you keep swinging it. He said, I'll take it on, Pastor. Let's do this. So we had a whole service, and I got the sword, and I gave it to him, and he took it. He's still going strong. God's bringing in people. The work that I started pioneering, he's still taking it over, and he's still having men's discipleships. Everything's still going good.
How long is Victor with you?
He was with us since, this was in 2017. He's been with us since 2010, I believe.
Yeah, because I remember going over there and visiting your church a few times. I remember he was always there. He was always being, how would you say, hospitable, loving.
Oh, yeah, very good guy.
Just making sure everything went right, man. So,
yeah.
So like how did you know he was the guy?
I didn't know he was a guy because I wasn't planning to ever let go.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for a guy.
Yeah.
Things happened, and this is where the way God works. But there was a church that didn't have a pastor, and he was under me, but he had been a pastor of a church already. So when he came to our church, I said, "You're welcome to be here, Pastor. You're welcome to be with us. Uh, we have a kindred spirit. So if you want, you can come here. And you don't have to usher. You don't have to prove yourself. A man's recognized by his office. I already said you already have the office as a pastor. As far as I'm concerned, you can be here as a pastor also." And so he came under me. He says, "I'm putting myself under you, pastor, whatever you want." So when there was a church that needed a pastor, we were associated with other pastors, and there was really nobody that could take on that position, but they needed a pastor because their pastor left. He just took off, abandoned them. So I said, "Pastor Victor," and he approached me, he says, "You know what, Pastor, I think I should go take over that church. I feel like they need me." And I said, "Yeah, I can see that." I said, "I have no problem with that. Go ahead." So he went over there. But Paul, that church didn't want him. They they really didn't want him as their pastor. They wanted to call the shots. They didn't want to rely on him as leading them. So then he says, "Pastor, it's just not working." I said, "Come on back then. Come on back to our church." That's when I started feeling, in 2017, that's when I felt that call to evangelize. And who else was, I couldn't leave the church. I mean, I even asked other pastors to come because he wasn't, I didn't know that it was going to be him, but I asked other pastors what they thought about the situation. But it was Pastor Victor, the one that everybody was already used to, and that he could carry it on, and things didn't happen there. I said, "You're the guy. God's showing me that you're the guy." And he says, he's been doing a great job. And, the War Wagon, I got into a ministry. Me and some people, we were in another ministry, but we started the Chain Breakers ministry, and the War Wagon's still being used, and we're still going out there. But it's more than just breaking chains of drug addiction. But I've noticed that there's people in churches that are building walls, ministries. This ministry cannot go to that ministry because something happened, or we can't be part of those people because of this. And that's within the church community, the Christian.
Right.
And I didn't think that felt right. It doesn't. I'm sure the Lord doesn't like it. And I said, we should break those chains. So that's a lot of what Chain Breakers is about, to just all be united, one. I even made that song, Imagine by by John Lennon. Imagine all God's people reaching all the world as one, And so I said, the Chain Breakers is a good name for people that are breaking those kind of chains, that are tearing down those kind of walls. So the War Wagon's still being used, and people need us in their churches. We're willing to go. We're a street ministry, not a church, as far as a street ministry, and we want to be a street.
Let me tell you something. So one day I'm in Boyle Heights, and usually I have a camera in my car somewhere. I forgot what I was doing in Boyle Heights, but I'm driving down some street off Cesar Chavez, and it's not a main street. It's like
I remember.
Huh?
I remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, you remember that? I'm driving back there for some reason. I see all these bombs, and I see them coming, and I'm like, "Whoa, and it ends up being Pastor Seday." So I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, what a trip, man!" Like in the middle of the hood or whatever. And I tried to pull him, to get him to interview him real fast, but he goes, "Man, I'm preaching the gospel right now, bro." He goes, "Later on, bro," and he was focused, bro. So it's crazy. They have this platform. They put speakers on it. There was all these lowriders with hydraulics, and I think I got some video of you guys going down the street. If I do, have the video? You're watching it right now. For those of you, I'm going to put it right here. You
Oh,
can see
amen.
some of them coming down the street. But I wanted to ask you, when you started the church right there on Cesar Chavez, I mean, like when I visited there, that place was loaded with gangster types. Like, how did you start the church? And how did like these gangsters from all these different barrios feel comfortable going there? I know it's only God, but put it in a human perspective.
One of the reasons, and it's gang infested, like cucarachas. That church building was the doors on that church building have bullet holes, and they wanted to cover them. And I said, no, don't cover them. Leave them like that. That's for a testimony of what God can do. I said, just like, I got the zigzag man on my arm, and my sisters tell me, you need to take that off because you're not into marijuana anymore. You're not doing that. I said, no, it's for a testimony to show God's glory. I told them, leave the bullet holes. And when they come in here, the people will see that our church is in the middle. Somebody told me it's like planting a garden in the middle of a junkyard. You can think about it. It's like planting a rose garden in the middle of a junkyard. But as long as those roses sprout, they're still going to bring out a good smell. So we those neighborhoods where we went with the warm wagon, and when we go in the street corners and we go with our food, whatever we're doing, those people, they get excited because it's like, this is one of us. This is not a different people coming here, but it's one of us sprouting. It's one of us maturing. It's one of us that is feeding us. One of us that are teaching us. And they see that. And I know they see that because I didn't see that. I came against it in the jailhouse. I came against it because I didn't know. But because I know, they're learning and they see it. And even today, even years after we got there in 2002, or 2000, even now they're still seeing that. And you know what? That church is ministering. That church, thank God for that church. Got people out of jail. They did it. And there's just so much because now the gangster, dope fiend, the drug addict, they have another connection to go to besides the drugs. They have another connection, another avenue or option from what they were doing. There's another way out. And they know it. They just got to go there. They just got to knock on that door.
It was incredible because, I remember the last time I was there, some guy Snake from White Fence had just gotten out of prison. And then what was cool is when I was in the Joint years back, I was in Tracy up at the Gladiator School. And I was up there with the guy Joker, John Sandoval from White Fence. And I got to reunite with him. I got to reunite with him at your church, bro. So, man, it was just incredible, man. Just a great vibe, man. And so what's one more thing. I think what you were saying, how it's incredible. Like when I hear your music, it's like your voice, everything. Like when we hear your music, you're singing the oldies and they're Christian. It's like the same, what you're saying, it's one of us. You could tell in your voice that this is one of us singing, and it brings a comfort, man. And it's pretty cool.
I see. I get it.
That's a homeboy right there. That's somebody who's been to the streets. He's not just singing. He's been where I've been. He's lived how I lived. He's been there and done that. And when you hear the music, you're like, I can relate,
Right. And you haven't heard my last one, Alley Oop. Alley Oop, Oop. I brought that one out, and people are saying, man, how did you even think of that song? And I said, I don't know. God just gives me stuff, and it relates to the people there.
Yeah.
That's what before I forget, Paul, I was ministering in Montebello one time. I'm kind of changing the subject. But while I was ministering, there was a girl in the audience, she kept crying, crying and crying. And I'm just, for the whole message, she just was crying. So at the end of the service, I went up to her and I said, "Sister, we serve a big God, and my God's going to help you no matter whatever is troubling you. God's here to help you." And she said, "No, Pastor, that's not why I'm crying." And I said, "Well, is there something you want to pray about?" She said, "Pastor, the reason I'm crying is when I was a little girl, I lived up in the hills in Garrity, and I remember everybody was leaving, and you crawled under some bushes, and you called some dogs were barking, and as the dogs were barking, they woke me up, and I looked outside, and as you were getting under the bushes, your homeboys were saying, 'Órale, Seday, I'll see you later, Seday. I'll see you tomorrow, Seday.'" And I remembered that name. And now that I'm hearing you preach to us, and you're singing and ministering to us, I'm remembering your story. I saw you under the bushes. I saw you, and I'm blown away about what God can do. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, "Wow, you're gonna make me cry." And she was just tripping out. And my sisters, remember I told you about my sisters?
Before.
And if only, you know, I'm glad our mom is dead. She didn't see having a Thanksgiving dinner years ago, and when we're having that dinner, they said, "Today, could you pray for the meal?" And I said a simple prayer. When I finished praying, they looked at me and they said, "If only our mom was alive to see
Wow.
what you became." They're
Wow.
the same ones that told me, "I'm
Woo.
glad our mom's dead." You
Full
know what I mean?
circle.
God just turned it around.
That is incredible, bro. That's incredible. And another thing I wanted to bring up as we're getting towards the end is I know at Chain Breakers, you guys recently came to La Habra to do an outreach. That's where I grew up,
Oh,
and
okay.
I know it was raining that day. It was raining that day, right?
Yeah.
But I want to say, don't give up on La Habra, man. That's where I had grown up. A lot of people, there's no one really hitting the streets, hitting the hoods. Keep doing what you guys are doing, man. La Habra needs it. Like, I know it was raining that day. I don't know if you guys had a lot of people or not. Don't give up on La Habra, bro. Come back, go back, keep doing it, man.
You invite us. You find the pastors. You find the street corner. You find the alley. You find those little spots. Because I don't know La Habra. I know Boyle Heights. And I've already hit all those places. But you know La Habra. You find them, Paul. We'll
Yeah,
go there. You
yeah.
know, in a minute's notice, we'll go over there. We'll hit
Yeah,
those
that
streets.
was the right area. You guys were in the right area. I just think the weather, but
Yeah,
the prayers were not for nothing, bro. But
right.
now, what are you doing now? And of course, we want to talk about what's coming up Saturday. But what are you doing now? Like, what's your ministry today besides awesome husband to a beautiful wife?
It's the same thing I've been doing. And people tell me, my family tell, "How do you do it? How do you keep up with this and with that? You're always busy. You always got something else. You never." My family even were so mad at me because I would come for a conference and they say, "You're here a whole week, always with us, and you got to catch a plane back. You know, you just abandoned us." And I said, "You know what? When I gave my life to Christ, I gave him my life. It didn't belong to me." He says, "Your life is not your own. It was bought and paid for with the price." I took that literally. My life belongs to God. And so what I'm trying to say, Paul, is I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just doing what he called me to do. And there's people they get sidetracked by who's our president, the disease. They get sidetracked by diseases. They get sidetracked by prices and all kinds of stuff. But our God is the same today and forever. He doesn't change. He doesn't waver. And you can't add an inch to your weight. You can't do anything by worrying. So I just stay on track and keep doing what I'm doing. Paul, I try to just say I'm humble, you know, and I try to live that way. And I don't like to blow my own trumpet, you know, I don't blow my own horn. But everybody that sees me, that knows me, um, they see the finished product. They see what God completed. You know, before the edges were taken off, before the rough edges, before the dust settled, there was nothing but a knucklehead, something that you would throw away. You know, when dumpster divers go in there just looking for a meal, well, God dug into this dumpster and found me. I was nothing, but I walk into a car show or a concert, and I have announcers while people are there. I have announcers that spot me in the front. Hey, there's Pastor Seday, you know. Hey, let's welcome Pastor Seday. And I'm just coming to their event, but I recognize I have a dignity, an air about me that God put there. It's not me. I have singers, you know, they finish a set, they sing in the neighborhood, and they point me out, hey, Pastor Seday's in there, let's give up big hand. Those are not things that I I I I make happen, but God puts us all on a pedestal. He takes us from glory to glory to glory. So all I'm doing is just one day at a time, step
Yeah.
at a time, one foot in front of the other, and I'm not doing anything. God just keeps on doing what He does.
Cool,
That's
man.
all it is.
And I want to ask you, I want to give you, as we're closing, is there anything else you wanted to share before we tell people how to get in contact with you?
Let God be God. God didn't appoint us to be the Holy Ghost. He's got the Holy Ghost. God didn't appoint us to be fault finders. You know, we're all jacked up. God found us, you know, messed up. He did it. He deserves all the honor and glory. Stay humble. You know, some people, it's gone to their heads. They put a price tag on their performances. They put a label on, you know, who they are. You know what? Forget all that. Point to God. Focus on God. He did it. Without God, we're nothing. I said, without God, we're nothing. You, Paul, as long as we remember that He picked us up and He cleaned us up, and as long as we believe that, we're gonna be all right. When that trumpet blows, we're gonna we're gonna make it. We're gonna go home. And you know, a lot of people like to say this: only God can judge me. That's a cop out. Only God can. You don't tell me about my life. Only God can judge me. That's a cop out. You know what I say? If you see me doing something wrong, judge me. I'm to be judged by you, because if I make a mistake, I want you to correct me. We are open, as Paul said. I am an open epistle to be read by all men. He didn't say God, to be read by all men. And that's what I want to be. I want my light to shine. That's somebody else's. That's on them. Work out your own salvation. I want my light to shine, and I want my salt not to lose its flavor for the kingdom of God.
Man.
About it, homie.
Amen. And you've been an example to me. I mean, I've heard people like me, but talk about me, talk about you. You have knives in your back. You've been betrayed, but I've never seen you. But I've always seen you ministering with a smile on your face, bro. And thank you for being an example of a Christian,
Man,
bro.
likewise.
I appreciate that, bro. And I've always looked up to you since I've known you. Your ministry, And thank you for being an
Thank you.
example for me, bro. But in closing, I want to bring up a couple of names, and I want you to say a couple of words about them, and maybe how they affected your life. You know, the
Be
first one,
careful.
Sonny Arganzoni.
There was a man, his name was Nicky Cruz. And Nicky Cruz was called to the ministry by Sonny. Sonny was called to the ministry by David Wilkerson. So by David calling Sonny, Sonny calling Nicky, Nicky called my pastor. Or should I say, Nicky Cruz called Sonny Arganzoni. Sonny Arganzoni met my pastor, Ruben Reina, who was my spiritual father. But that's our bloodline.
Yes.
And it starts out with David Wilkerson going to an unknown land. He didn't know the gangster. He didn't know the doping, but he was sent to the mountains to preach to a gang. Just like Abraham was sent to an unknown land. I'm going to take you to a land where you know not of, unfamiliar territory. And I think that's what we're all. I just been blessed that God took me to Boyle Heights, a familiar territory. But as far as Sonny Arganzoni goes, I think he has a powerful ministry, and he was led by the Holy Spirit to do what he was called to do, and he has started thousands of churches. And I think his ministry was to make 1 million churches. I don't know, something like that. But honestly, I've never met Sonny Arganzoni. I've never met him, but that's what he means to me. He's a man of God that followed the pattern and stood right in line. And because of him, because of Sonny's ministry alone, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that come to the cross just from his ministry alone. So Sonny and Julie, kudos to you. You're on the right track, and thank you for being there.
Yeah. Yeah, and another was Sonny. Sonny, I look up to Sonny a lot too. Sonny, like any ministry, man, like you said, we're not to be fault finders. Every ministry has something you could point at.
Right.
What a man of God. He's a powerful teacher, bro.
Amen.
He's powerful. And the last ones I want to bring up are friends of ours, mutual friends, and I know you love these people. Bob and Pat Mikado.
Poor Bobby.
You're on the poor Bobby team, huh?
Yeah. I've been with Bobby since 1985, and even when they got into their own ministry at the Church of the Redeemer, when I started going with them, I'm not on staff or anything, but they know Bobby calls me his foxhole buddy. And what he says is that, if he was ever in a foxhole, he would want to be connected with me because he knows I'd watch his back. And in the same way, I know Bobby's got my back. Bobby's the most humble man that you will ever meet. He doesn't care about the credits. He doesn't care. He doesn't even care if you step on his brand new Stacy's. It doesn't matter to him. Those things are just, they still mean nothing to him. Pat, she's such a sister that loves the Lord. Her heart. And if you ever heard her minister, I mean, she can break it down. She can get into her word. And Pat she's just a ball of love. I love them both. They're just, what can I say? They just mean a lot to a lot of the Christian community. It just loves Bobby and Pat. They're just so real and down to earth, down to earth. And that's what I want to be around. I don't want to. I've always shunned or stayed away from authority. But it doesn't matter how high up Bobby and Pat are. They come on at Channel 40, things that it doesn't matter. They're still down to earth people, and I love being around them. What can I say?
Yeah, the same here. Bobby and Pat, they're great examples. They've impacted so many of our lives. And for those of you out there, if you ever want to, usually once a month, They meet in Baldwin Park for
The first Monday of every month.
yeah, the first Monday of every month. There's people from Calvary Chapel, Praise Chapel, Victory, from every church. They come together, and usually a lot of them have been to the joint. They get together. They have a time with the Word, fellowship.
It's like a reunion.
Yeah, yeah. So they get together, and you guys ever want to go out? It's the first Monday of every month. I think it's what time?
At 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. You know, we're on
And the
lockdown.
tacos are the bomb. They're there at 6 o'clock, the tacos.
Yeah, and then afterwards, there's a time of fellowship where everybody just hangs
Man.
out. They have a yearly prison ministry where they go, and usually every time I've gone, Pastor Seday singing, so you'll get to hear him sing. But Pastor Seday, before we close, I know you got an event coming up. Let's talk about that this Saturday, right? Online.
Right.
Tell us about it.
People are locked down. They're locked in their houses. The churches are closed. You know, the doors are closed. The markets, you know, they're trying to keep people from social gatherings. And so we just want to break it. We just want to we're having a lockdown live, and that's this Saturday at 2 o'clock. And just get on your phone just the way you are right now. We're just going to put out we just want to bless you. This is not a fundraiser. This is not to lift up a church. We are just presenting our ministry, the Chain Breakers. This is a Chain Breaker event only for the reason or the purpose of just showing you what we got. Your church, we'll take it to your neighborhood. Whatever we got, we'll take it over there. We're chain breakers, and we want to break those chains that people have. And so that's going to be this Saturday at 2 o'clock. I guess it could go under my site, Rudy Garcia's site. You know, it'll be on there. I really don't know how to do all those things, media things, but you'll find it. It's at 2 o'clock this Saturday.
As long as you share it on your page, then we could all put it on our pages.
Okay, I'll share it. And Bobby Guzman, the comedian, will be there. Vince Margolis will be there. Sister Josie will be on hand. Incubus will be there. And I hope I didn't leave. Brother Joseph, Pastor Victor, Rudy Garcia. We're all just going to be there just having a good time.
Are you going to be singing?
I'm going to be singing. I'm going going down. I got a surprise for you guys.
Okay. Cool, man. So this Saturday, everybody, I know some of you aren't going to see this video till after Saturday. For those of you we're talking about, but keep following Pastor Seday. So if they wanted to get a hold of you for prayer, ministry, or have you come sing at their church or get some of the CDs, how do they do that?
Just dial my number, 626-622-9496. Always available. Always trying to help churches.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do.
So you can have them come out if you want them to minister or give a testimony, give a word,
anything,
some music, whatever. Be part of your conference. Man, have him out, man. He's powerful. So give me that number one more time, Pastor.
626-622-9496.
Awesome. Well, you guys, we're going to close this interview now. We thank you for watching. We pray that you were blessed. Thank you, Pastor Seday, for coming on. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. May this video go all the way around the world. We need you guys to share it with people, with youngsters, with tecatos, druggies, anybody, straight-laced people, white collar, blue collar. Share it with everyone. Let them see what God can do to a man who was down and out, and how God used people like Porky to pull him up, and be a church planner and affecting the United States with music. So I encourage you again, get a hold of him, get his CDs, enjoy his music. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. And until the next time, God bless you. May the Lord keep you. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. In Jesus' name, amen.